Next up, the Excel object model. Let's say you want to get to cell A1 on sheet 1. Well, there's a specific way in VBA to point to this spot by traversing this object model that we're going to discuss in this lecture. So VBA is an object-oriented programming language. The basic concept of object-oriented programming is that a software application, in this case Excel obviously, consists of various individual objects, each of which has its own sets of features and uses. So in the case of Excel, the application has workbooks, for instance, as you can see in this diagram, worksheets, ranges of cells, and each of these objects has its own sets of features, which are called actually properties, and its own sets of uses, which are called methods. For instance, a worksheet cell is an object, and among its most describable features, its properties, are things like its address, its height, its fill color, maybe what values inside of it. Those are all parts of the worksheet cell. Okay, so let's say you do want to go to a particular cell. Let's say we want to go to cell A1 on sheet 1. Well, then this is how you would indicate that. It's a fairly long, drawn-out technique. It uses the dots to indicate subsections of a master hierarchy. Okay, so we start off obviously with the largest hierarchy being the application first. Okay, dot, workbooks, and then in brackets you name the workbook you're going to work in. So I made a fictitious name there, the cost workbook. Dot, then you mention a worksheet that you're worried about. And you might only have one sheet, so you'd say it's sheet 1. You might have a sheet 2. Then dot, range, and we're almost there. Then you tell it the cell name, in this case A1, and then dot select. And that is how you would get to that particular spot. Now there is a slightly easier way. You don't necessarily have to say always the application, and sometimes you don't even have to mention the workbook, okay? So you can go straight to the worksheet and then indicate that. And even more than that, what you can do is if you have multiple sheets, instead of having to write down the exact name of the sheet, you can put in brackets 1, 2, 3, and I like using that technique, and it'll speed up our sort of naming path. Okay, I've loaded up the demo that I'm going to use for today's lecture, and it's called Quarter Sales. And as you can see, all the action is going to happen in the developer ribbon, so make sure you click on that, and then we'll press Visual Basic. Now before we get rolling, we're going to try out a few of these object naming techniques and show you how to pull apart things like, how do I get Glen Park to show up to say that that was the second worksheet, things like that. It's going to be kind of neat. Before we do that, let me just go to View for a second and show you the object browser. And this has every possible object that you can name in Excel. Slide down to one that I recognize. Let's go to the R's. Is there range somewhere? There's a lot of M's here, right? Let's slide down even more. Okay, so R for range. So we're in the, there it is, range. Now when I press range, you notice here there's some green stuff, okay, and some just things that have that hand on it. These are properties, okay? So for instance, with the range, let's go down to value, way down here at the bottom. So notice that, that's a property, all right? So we're going to be able to change the value of a cell. We can put stuff in it. We can actually say what's in that cell. We'll show you that in a few minutes. The ones that are in green, those are what are called methods. So you know how you want to go on top of a cell and select it? That's a method. All right, so if we went to select, and I'll hopefully find it, there it is in kind of a green. Okay, so those are methods, all right, and the other ones are called properties. So if you are stuck and you want to pick something and figure out what it actually does, this is where you would go, the object browser. Now, to learn these commands, what we're going to do is make kind of a screen that's just used for temporary things. Programmers use this trick to help them figure out little things, and then they leave that screen and go back to typing the actual code. So the screen that I want you guys to make appear is called the immediate window. It's going to be right there, and we're going to type in some really shortcut commands just to get used to these object oriented commands. Okay, so I'm going to go through a series of commands, and I'm going to start off with this question mark, which is kind of a shortcut for saying display an answer, print out the answer. You wouldn't program like this. This would be things for like quick, dirty little things that you want to do right in front of the screen here, and then you would go back into VB and type them in the proper format. But this rest of this command, this is the proper command. Now, look what I'm going to do here. I'm asking for the application's name. When we press enter, what do you know? It says Microsoft Excel. So this is using the Excel object model. This is how we name things. All right, here's another one. We're going to type in question mark, and then we're going to type in application again, dot, work, books, bracket, 1, dot, and I want to know the name of this workbook that we're using, and it's called quartersales.xlsx. Okay, so again, we're using the object model, and now we're going down sort of like the top level, second level, and then a little bit lower. This is obviously a property associated with the workbook. Okay, let's do another one. Application dot work books. Now this time I won't type in a 1. I'll actually name the workbook, just so you know you can do it both ways. So quarter sales.x, like that. Okay, bracket dot. Now we're going to go to the worksheets. Worksheets dot count. How many we're going to have here? Hopefully it says 2. Yes, it does. Okay, I'm going to get a little bit lazy with this next one. I'm not going to keep typing an application because it knows it defaults to Excel, obviously. So workbooks, and I'm going to use a 1 instead of typing in the whole name. Then I'm going to type in worksheets, and again I'm going to type in a 1 dot name, and it says Jackson. Okay, so it's pulling out. So this is ways that we're going to access these parts of the spreadsheet. We're going to go right to actual cells, which brings us to the next example. So we'll start it off exactly the same. Workbooks 1 dot worksheets 1 dot. Now we're going to go to an actual cell. So we're going to type in the word range, and then in quotes A1. All right, you can probably just see it on the left-hand side of my screen what I'm after. Dot, and what I want to do is pull out what is in that spot. I'm going to press enter. Item. It pulled out the item. Now we could have gone down and pulled out a number. We actually could do the reverse and put a number in that. That's what we'll do next. Now to put a number in the cell, we're not actually going to display anything. We're actually going to do something physically and put it in there. So we don't need the question mark. It's not going to print out an answer. So when I press enter on this one, you're not going to see anything in the immediate window. You're going to see something in the actual spreadsheet. Let's take a look at how you do that. So you start off the same. You say work books bracket 1 dot worksheets bracket 1 dot range, and then quotes A. No, let's not put an A1. Let's put it in. Go down a bit. So B10, and then dot value equals 20. Now watch. Keep your eye on the left-hand side of the screen. Look at that 20 there. This one example really shows you the power of this object model and how we're going to incorporate commands like this in VBA to modify the contents of our screen and update values and charts and things like that. So what we did was we changed the value of one of the properties of the spreadsheet. Let's continue to do a couple more cool things to finish up. Again, in this one, I'm not going to use the print. So we're not going to display an answer here. We're actually going to put something on the spreadsheet. And I'm going to slide this over just a bit more so you can see it better. And I'm going to get even lazier this time because I'm on already the first worksheet. So I'm just going to go, I'm not even going to type in the workbook this time. I'm going to type in worksheets 1 and then dot range. And I'm going to write the range a little bit different. I'm going to write 2:2. You'll see what this does in a second. Dot select. Let me press enter. And what it did was it picked the entire second row. Okay? So again, we are now modifying it, and this is actually a method. Okay? When you type in dot select, that's a method as opposed to a property. So we've done something to the worksheet that way. One more cool one to do. Actually, can I get lazy and just type over this one? Yeah, I think I'm going to. So I'm going to change this to, and I'm going to be very specific now, A1 to A8, comma, C1 to C8, and then I'm going to select and see what that does. So it's picked those two rows going straight down. Isn't that cool? I won't actually press enter on this last one, but when you've had enough of this, this is how you would exit in code Excel. Now, let's try some problems. So do you think you get it? I know it's kind of dry, this material. You really want to start programming, doing something cool on the spreadsheets, but you had to work through this object model theory and the hierarchy and everything of how everything is set up from upper to lower. And once you get the hang of it, it will be a piece of cake, and we'll incorporate it in all kinds of cool programs. Now, if you think you need more practice, I've got a couple of sample exercises here that you could try. The material is in the resources for today's lecture, so when they say load in the budget and the sales, those are all available in the resources in a compressed format. Just uncompress them and give them a try. All pretty straightforward stuff here, but just to review the concepts. And remember, I used the question mark to print out some stuff, and some stuff where I actually pulled information out from the spreadsheet or put it in, I didn't use the question mark in the immediate box. But that'll just give you a basic idea. And now we're going to get into some serious programming, incorporating this object model and all kinds of cool things. Thanks for listening. Take care. We'll see you in the next lecture.